Today, I'm going to be talking to Mark Summers, who's the Chief Strategy Officer for Emissions Reduction Alberta. They're running a circular economy challenge, $58 million for participating firms. So I'm going to chat with him about that. So welcome to the interview, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm really excited about the circular economy. Now, I have to say, I was a bit of a late convert. Idea has been around for a while. The idea that you recycle, reuse, and so on. But I'm seeing it more and more in industry. Everybody really picking up on it. It's nice to see Alberta putting this kind of money into these kinds of projects.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right that the notion, particularly you referred to the sort of the three R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Those have been around for a long time, and the concept of recycling, reducing consumption, reusing materials has been around. But I think what's great about the circular economy concept is that it's a simple concept that resonates, and very much along the lines of the three R's. A traditional economy, you might want to call it linear, it's sort of be a little bit technical, but you have raw goods that get created into products that ultimately end up with some sort of waste that needs to be managed. And the concept of the circular economy includes reusing and recycling. And it also looks at the front end. How do we design products in the beginning that can make use of recycled material and can be designed so that at end of life, those materials can be kept in the economy longer, which has sort of benefits at both the front end and the back end.
Well, one of the reasons why I'm a little late to this game, I mean, we recycle and we have for years, like most people, but it seems like in the past the onus has been on the consumer to reuse, recycle, and so on. Whereas now it appears that it's made its way into industry, into engineering, into design, so that, as you say, the whole cycle of the product is designed with that in mind. And that strikes me as being different. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. And I think, people have wanted to reduce their environmental impact for quite some time, and being able to do that as a consumer is a really powerful tool. And as you said, the pressure has been mounting through the impacts of climate change as well as other environmental issues to put the onus across the sort of the value chain of producers, raw good manufacturers, as well as consumers. And so it is a bit of a shift, and it coincides with this notion of a circular economy, and I think it's a really good thing.
Well, let's talk about some of the projects. This is interesting. A project that turns inedible eggs into a powder to feed pets and livestock, recycling asphalt from roof shingles, capturing and storing carbon in concrete. I've actually interviewed that company. That's Upcycle Carbon.
Yeah,
Carbon
carbon
Upcycle.
upcycling technologies.
Carbon
Yeah.
Upcycling. What are some of the other projects that have been chosen that are the successful applicants for this challenge?
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a really good question, and that's I get excited about this, and one of the things that really excites me about this particular funding challenge that we held is that we have such a broad diversity of technologies and industries and sectors that this touches on. You already talked about inedible eggs turning into powder. You talked about asphalt shingles. You talked about carbon upcycling in terms of creating supplementary cementitious material. On top of that, it keeps going. We've got Circular Rubber Technologies has a technology to reclaim rubber from end-of-life high-grade tires from industrial activities. Think the big haulers and mine sites, and essentially break that rubber down so it can be remade into valuable rubber products. We've got another local company, Hydrovac Waste Solutions, based here in Edmonton, that is a completely different approach that is, oftentimes when land needs to be moved around for removing overburden or whatever, the water is used, and it creates this sort of water soil slurry that sometimes unfortunately needs to be landfill, but they've got this great technology to recover the valuable products from that hydrovacuum process. We've got a company, Inca RenewTech, that's looking at using essentially hemp materials to create a really sustainable, advanced biocomposite material. There's and the list keeps going. There's probably about 3 or 4 that I didn't mention, and I'm really excited about the variety, and that there's a whole list of companies that we haven't worked with in the past.
Now, did I hear that correctly? Did you mention hemp being turned into material?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
You have no idea how often I get tagged on social media by the hemp advocates, because this has been around for a long time, and they're advocating for hemp to be used in place of synthetic materials and so on. So tell us a little bit more about that project, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually a fairly large project. The company Inca RenewTech is going to construct and operate a first of kind facility that will use hemp stock to create, as I mentioned, what's ultimately a biocomposite material that will displace a combination of petroleum-based products as well as imported, I guess we call maybe exotic wood that's used, for example, in wind turbines and a number of other materials. This is a big project, $175 million investment. ERA is contributing $10 million toward this, and as you said, one of the things that's tremendously exciting about this is we've known, broadly speaking, for a long time that hemp has a lot of great properties and useful properties, and we could do a lot of things with it. But this is actually sort of the rubber hitting the ground, so to speak, and we'll see a commercial facility in operation in the near term based on this.
Now, this is a commercial facility, and you're the strategy officer. So I want to ask you a question about strategy. Mm-hmm. So public capital often is used to, once technologies come out of the lab, they come off the bench, and then they go out into the demonstration project, pilot project, and then they have to get through that valley of death, as it's called, where private is still too risky. It's had, the technology has had some public capital involved, some private capital, but to get over the valley of death, it requires more, and it's too risky for private. Is that where most of these technologies are, in that valley of death?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because we get this quite frequently, and it's a really important conversation to have. So you're absolutely right. There is using the term fairly broadly, a large valley of death where technologies that are coming out of the lab, prototypes have been developed, now suddenly need to be scaled up tremendously in terms of physical size and be put into the field for some sort of pilot testing, field testing, or demonstration to demonstrate commerciality. But what we've seen over the years, so ERA has been around since 2009, and what we've seen quite clearly is there's another an extension or another valley of death where after it's been demonstrated but a commercial facility or commercial installation hasn't been completed, and you've probably heard this from others, where a lot of investors and industry operators are in a hurry to be the second adopter. Now, there are early adopters, but there is absolutely, in a case like this with the Inca RenewTech, there is absolutely a lot of risk in going ahead with a first of kind commercial facility. And in essence, the purpose of our funding is to share that risk with the market, whether it's the risk of technology scale up, or that demonstration, or in some cases a first of kind commercial facility. But you're right, that breadth of what I talked about, and if you talk in technology readiness levels, which not everybody does, it's around sort of TRL 6 or 7 up to around early 9, and that's sort of our bread and butter at ERA.
We'll have to have a conversation about that another day. But now these projects are worth $528 million in public and private investment. And there's a lot of attention being paid these days to crowding in private capital. So the public money comes in, but it's leveraging financing, it's leveraging equity, it's leveraging other kinds of private capital. And it sounds like the $58 million that ERA is putting into this has leveraged almost at a 10-to-1 level, or ratio, I should say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I guess it would be just somewhere almost around a 9-to-1 leverage ratio, which is fantastic. Now, I would qualify that to say that that number can be a little bit skewed is not necessarily the right word, but we've got a couple projects in here that are fairly large projects. The Inca Renewtech project is about $175 million project. Another one with phytoorganics that's really fascinating commercial. The other commercial scale, looking at a yellow pea fractionation facility, is about a north of $200 million facility. And so those sort of drive the leverage numbers up somewhat, but there are some at a little bit smaller, earlier stage. RBW Waste Management we're working with on a high density polyethylene recycling system, and that's smaller. We're putting in 700,000 to a total of 100 or $1.4 million project. So the range is broad, and that that talks to what we already mentioned, is that we take a very deliberately a portfolio approach across technology readiness levels, across timescales, and across industries, because we think it's important to have more irons in the fire, so to speak.
Well, Mark, this has been fascinating. Thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks so much, Markham. It's always a pleasure talking to you.